Here's a quick update here, Thursday, October 2nd, around 12 noon, lunchtime update. Um, so this is a 5-year chart of the S&P. This is a channel that we've been looking at since the April lows here um, of the 2025 bear market. But look back, this was the inverse head and shoulders, back in the 2022 bear market. Came off of that, came back down here, April 7th, I believe it was. Yeah, it was the low. 48.35 on the S&P. And we've just been going up ever since then. So this additional channel right here, line, I drew based on these highs back in December of 2021. You can see we got close again in November as well here back in 2021. So I didn't have this on previously. I drew this because, we went above. I was really looking at what was going on here with this channel. I thought that this would be a little bit more significant, but you can see we bounced up above that. And so now, I'm basically looking at a couple of points from 2021 as an extended upper trend line here, this white line. So if we take a closer look at that, you can see what's been happening here. We gapped up above this lower portion of that upper trend line, and that was, back in the beginning of September. And we've been trading in between that. And you can see today, like in pre-market, we gapped up. We were up about 20 some points on the S&P, and now we're down about 4 or 5. So this is going to be an interesting area right here. Stochastic is above 80 again. So this is, get an area where you could see potential, pullback. Again, this, we're 5-6 months into this new bull market, so I expect this will keep going for the next 12 to 18 months minimum. Average bull market again is 3 or 4 years, but doesn't mean we can't have some significant pullbacks here as far as to the 50-day, or even lower. If you start breaking the 50, we could start coming down to this level here, in this upper quadrant. So that's what I've been talking about. So, I was doing some selling when I kept seeing this bouncing against this trend line here, this white one, the lower, the lower one, this upper trend channel. And I was doing some selling here, and then we broke above it. And like I said, this is kind of an interesting area here where, going back to the 5-year chart, if this actually does hold, going back to 2021, this data point, this could be an area where we get maybe a little bit more of a substantial pullback. So that's basically what I'm looking at in terms of the S&P. It's always good to sell in some strength and have some powder dry for when there is a pullback, because you can see here, we're pretty extended, well above the 10, the 20, the 50-day moving averages. That's a good thing, as long as we stay above the 50. This is a very solid trend, but we are kind of wedging here a little bit, which, again, that's another chart pattern where you could start having some pullback. So just looking at some of the stocks real quick. Palantir is one of my top holdings. You can see we're approaching this former high of exactly 190, which is back on August 12th. That was a even 190. So when you hit those numbers like that, where they're either on a high or a low, that's oftentimes a high or low point that lasts for a while. So that's what we hit back here in August and formed a little bit of a cup. And now it looks like we're in the handle stage. So the handle would have to break around, what is this right here, about 185.75. And we're at 185.55 right now. So, we get up above 185.75, then it could take off. But again, I'm a little skeptical right now because, again, with the S&P, if you look at where we are, I'd be concerned about buying any breakouts right now, given where we are in this channel. And then also the NASDAQ, if we look at the NASDAQ, we're up against that channel as well, coming close to, this upper trend line here, which goes back to, 2024 here in July, and then hit that again in December of last year. And we're getting pretty close to that again here. So you got the two major indexes, which are, up against some major resistance here. So we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, so Palantir, CellH, I've been talking about that one for a while. Had a little bit of a pullback here, opportunity. I've got my revised trend line in here, this white line. So you can see we've had higher highs and higher lows. So that's doing really well. Good jump on earnings there. got as high as 63.50 back on August 29th, and we're in the 58 range here. So another good stock. And again, longer term, my expectations we get up to about 100. That's where our former highs was 98, 99. Last year. So I would suspect that we could probably retest that. On sell age. What else? Microsoft. This one, a little bit of a pullback here. On earnings, we had a huge jump, and then we've got some consolidation. So we're back around the 50-day. So I think this is, if you wanted to keep this one on your watch list again. I'm concerned about where we are on the indexes, so I'd be really careful about any buying opportunities right now. But if this thing starts dropping and retesting this low here of 492, I think that might be an opportunity at that point. Let's see, Apple. This one has been moving pretty good as of late. Looks like we're forming another cup here. So we should be able to retest this 260 area, which we're right at about right now. In fact, yesterday we were up to 258.79. So, I could see maybe with this cup forming a little handle here, maybe a little bit of a sell-off here based on where the indexes are. AMD, this one gave an opportunity. We're up nice today, almost 4%, but you can see here we had a nice run, and then we're consolidating at this point. So almost like a bull flag at this point. So I could see this one easily going back up and testing the this high right here of 180. Was that 186? And then breaking out from there. Let's see what else. SMCI, I like this one. Gave you an opportunity here. We had a pullback to this trend line, this white trend line. That was down in the 39, high 39 level there. So it's back up to 52. So I like that one. AFRM. This is a great one as far as channels are concerned. Since my last update in early August, I've been looking at these two channel lines here, right, as basically my trading range. And you can see what we did right here with earnings on August 29th. It hit a perfect $100. And again, with these round numbers, when you hit a round number like that, a lot of people have their limit orders. Same with a stop loss, they'll put a round number. And I never use round numbers for that reason. For something like this, I'd be below $100. But again, this is something where this was a great opportunity to sell here. You got your earnings just about hit that upper trend line right there. And this was the existing points here. You can see the data point from 12/23, got close December of 24, and then February of this year, we hit that upper trend line. So good trend line on here, bottom and top, really nice and symmetrical. Excuse me. And you can see how that played out, and almost a 30% drop. Went all the way down to $70. So 30% drop from there, and now we're up to 76. So we'll have to see how this plays out. We're really, sold off here in the stochastic, so that might have already put in a low. But again, we'll have to see how the indexes do here. See how this plays out. We could get maybe down to the 150 moving average, which is this magenta line, or even the 200-day, which would be a great opportunity. You're now all of a sudden you're about halfway down the channel. But I like that stock a lot. Root, this one has been a little frustrating. This really, I got stopped out with the earnings here on August 6th. Talked about that. Drew a channel. This was kind of in a rising wedge. I'd mentioned that in the last video. We broke through that, sold off here. I got stopped out, but was hoping we could stay above this channel line here. And that was looking very positive up until a few days ago. So the end of September here, September 26th, this thing kind of broke the lower trend line here, as you can see if I do a 6-month. You can see how we broke below that on September 25th, actually, gap down below it. So retested it, 2 days later, got as high as 94.04, and now we're making lower lows again here. So if you have this one, you got to make sure you put a stop loss just below 83.77. I'd probably put it like 83.40. I wouldn't let it go past that, because basically if we start going past 83.40, now all of a sudden you're in no man's land, and you got this big gap from October of 24, and that would be a potential gap fill. And now all of a sudden you're talking about going all the way back down like to the 40s. which should be like another 50% decline. So I'd be really, if you have this one, I'd have a real tight stop on it. Don't let it get below this resistance here, or this support. I'm sorry, the support here. At this level, this 83.77. Okay, Oxy's been a little frustrating. I thought we'd be able to get up here to this upper trend line, and just didn't make it. Got as high as 49.45, and then we're selling off here. It's down like 6% today. So we're still above former lows, so it's making higher highs. But the last couple of days here, this thing is has sold off. So um, you know this one may not we may not stay in this one too much longer, especially depending if we've got a pullback on the indexes. Tesla, this has done really nice, getting close to that upper trend line here, which was 488 back in December of last year. You can see once we broke above resistance here at 367, which is where my line was here. We just took off here the last couple of weeks, so it gapped up. It was around 473, I think, this morning when I saw the futures, and it sold off. It's at 447, so that's the old red dog reversal right there. Probably going to have a pullback at this point, and may even come back down and test this 370 level. Got a couple of gaps in here, but I think this longer term, this trend line here is one to watch. Basically, we've got a couple of good data points here between the upper trend line and lower trend line. So, I think anything pull back to this level here, I think would be a good buying opportunity if we see that in the indexes. Okay, uranium, this thing is just really continues to do well. We had the fake breakdown here, back in April, and then this thing is just taken off. And I talked about this bull flag here, and basically this would be the flag post. So you could expect this thing to go up like another 20 points, and it's already, almost hit 50.89. So that can easily go another $10. From where it's at right now to complete this flagpole. So basically the flagpole, you have a flagpole here, you have the flag, and then you could typically get another length of the flagpole. The length of this flagpole you can basically put above this flag here. So that would have been another $20 above the flag. Let's see, Mara. It's a crypto stock here. We've been kind of consolidating here. I thought this was an inverse head and shoulders, going back to the 2022 bear market, and we're kind of consolidating in between here. So, had some buying opportunities here in the $14-15 range. It's up to $19.32 today. So I think longer term this could form a cup here and maybe handle formation here in terms of the chart. I talked about Lemonade last time. This one has really done well, making higher highs, higher lows. Look at the 2-year chart. This came down to the 50-day today and a couple days ago. So the 50-day looks like really good support here. So I think this is a good one as long as we don't get too much of a sell-off on the indexes. Zeta's another one I like. This thing is getting down close to the 50-day today, and we've got a nice channel here that's formed. So you can look at your lower trend line. This white line is as good support, as well as the 50-day moving average, which is around 1893. And it's currently at 1924. All right. So let's see what else we got. UNH, I mentioned that one last time. Did a kind of a detailed look at this one. It was up in the 600s back in April. Or actually, even if you go farther back to November, it was 630.73 in November last year, and then really sold off, just plummeted, went all the way down to 247.75. Back in July, and it's it's been just parabolic here ever since that. It's up to 352 today. It's up again. So this is something I'd mentioned where I really thought the sell-off was extreme, and we were down to levels that hadn't seen since the financial crisis as far as the momentum indicators. So I thought this one was going to pop, and it's up over $100 since then. So I think some consolidation here is good if you're looking to get into UNH, or if you bought it, and in this area here, I think it's a good longer term hold. And if it gets down to the 50-day, that would be a good buying opportunity. Some of the newer ones that I picked up, A-Lab, like this one a lot. It's up 16 today, close to 9%, but hit this 50-day. So I was buying this in this area here, but hit the 50-day, and we gapped up today. So I like this action here. I think this is a good longer term stock, making higher highs and higher lows. Amazon, I think this is actually a good buying opportunity where it's at right now. We're kind of consolidating here. We are below the 50, the 10 and the 20-day moving averages, but we're above the 150 and the 200. So as long as we stay above the 200, I think this is a good one. But again, it all depends on what happens, with the indexes. I certainly wouldn't hold it below 211.42. It's at 221 right now, but I would not let it go past 211. That would be below the 200-day, which is at 214.62. And these former lows usually act as support. So if they break, then they can become resistance. BMNR, I like this one a lot. This was a big, huge move up here. You can see just parabolic here, back in July with earnings. But, this thing was trading at, below $5, and it went all the way up to 161, which is crazy. Imagine that. That's just unbelievable. But it's consolidating here. We've got kind of a triangle pattern, and I do like this one above the 50-day moving average. There's another one here, FUTU. I like this one. It's trading around the 50-day right now. I do like that one. It's in a nice trend here. This is the 2-year chart, so I do like this one on the pullbacks. And then KLB, it's the last one I'll look at here. And again, this one is doing a nice job above the 50-day moving average, which is this blue line here. So, basically, if you buy these, I would just, keep tight stops on them, because I do think, again, going back to the indexes, we could have a pullback here. Now, if this gets above this upper trend line, this is the S&P again. If this gets above that, then we could end up having to draw new trend lines here and see what that looks like. But as of now, this is pretty cemented in, I think, as far as pretty strong resistance. So I think you're going to continue to see some selling here at this point. We'll just have to see what that looks like. That whether we break the 10 and the 20, get down to the 50 and find a bounce, or if we can break the 50, we'll have to see how that plays out. But if it gets above this upper trend line, then that to me is basically we could be forming a new pattern, and we have to see what that looks like as far as the trend lines and channels. And same thing with the Nasdaq. We're getting up around this upper trend line here. So to me, that's where you want to probably look at holding some cash. And if you look at the stochastic down here, if I look at the stochastic, you can see that we're making these highs, and this, as we make new highs, this is a little bit lower here. So that's negative divergence. I talked about that in my last video, but when you have this negative divergence, sometimes you're going to get a pullback based on that. And the other thing I like to look at is the VIX, right? So when you start seeing the VIX, this thing is making higher highs here. You can see this as we've been consolidating. This thing is making on a stochastic, this thing is going higher. So that tells me we could have a spike. I'm not saying it's going to get up to like the 50s or 60s, but we could easily see a spike, up in the 20s, lower to mid 20s here easily. And if that happens, you're going to see at least a couple percentage points pullback. I'm not saying anything double digit, but certainly you can see 5-8% pullback easily on the S&P. And that might be starting now, just based on where we are with this trend line. We'll have to see how that plays out. But again, I view that as a buying opportunity. Any pullbacks that we do see, that's a buying opportunity. So it's good to have some cash on hand, if that does happen. Okay, that's the update. Hope everybody's doing well. Take care. Have a good weekend.